Guys, if you haven't already, you absolutely have to make sure for my brand new webinar called The 3-Step Method to Prevent Kidney Stones. In it, I share the top 3 mistakes that I see people make every single day when trying to prevent kidney stones. And of course, I'll share what to do instead. I'll also be talking about the exact step-by-step method that I've used to help hundreds of people stop kidney stones in my course, Kidney Stone Nutrition School. Make sure to register for this free webinar at www.kidneystoneclass.com. I cannot wait to see you there. Welcome to the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I'm your host, registered dietitian and kidney stone expert, Melanie Betts. After learning a ton about kidney stones and helping people prevent stones at the University of Chicago, I was fed up with all the terrible advice people were finding online. So I decided to do something about it. The Kidney Dietitian was born. This podcast is for people who want to learn what actually works to prevent kidney stones and still enjoy life, eating, and their favorite foods. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the 104th episode of the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I am your host, registered dietitian and kidney stone expert, Melanie Betts. And today I want to talk about truly the most common mistake that I see people make when they are trying to prevent kidney stones. I have been doing this for quite some time. I've been in the kidney stone game for almost 10 years at this point. And I have honestly, I feel quite humble and honored that so many people trust me and send me messages about their kidney stone journey. And so truly, since I've started the Kidney Dietitian all the way back in, it was April 2020, my website launched actually, so it's been a while. I have received thousands of messages from people who are really struggling with their kidney stones, who feel out of control, who feel that there's just nothing that they can do to prevent kidney stones. And as I always say, if you get nothing else from my content, I would love for you to hear the message that kidney stones are preventable, no matter who you are, no matter why you are making kidney stones. Even if your doctor said, oh, you're just a stone former, this is just kind of the cards that you've been dealt, there are always things that you can do to, at the very least, reduce the risk of forming more stones and likely prevent them altogether. Of course, I cannot guarantee that we will prevent stones. If I did, that would make me a complete quack, and I would probably just trying to sell you something. If someone does say that, I would run far from them because that's simply not how medicine works. However, I think that unfortunately, many doctors and most dietitians are unaware of the very significant things that we can do to, again, reduce the risk of you forming more stones. I've worked with people who have a rare genetic condition called MSK, or medullary sponge kidney, or medullary sponge disease, which essentially causes some changes that makes kidney stones very, very common. You know, I've worked with people who have had stones, they're passing stones once a month, multiple times a month, people who have had hundreds of kidney stones in their lifetime. And even in those situations, there are definitely things that we can do to at least make them more likely, right? Going from passing 12 stones a year to 5 is a huge win. And I've also helped people who have that condition, by the way, completely prevent stones altogether. So, it's all so different based on your biology, and nutrition is only part of the puzzle, right? Sometimes there are other things that we need to do. However, again, no matter who you are, there are things that we can do to at least reduce that risk of stones. And it's heartbreaking that I hear so many people hear from their medical providers, unfortunately, who are just, I think, unfortunately uneducated, because kidney stone prevention is not really a part of training for many urologists, that there are things that we can do to prevent kidney stones. And that is my message that I really want to get out there. I put on the main page of my website, kidney stones are preventable. There are things that we can do to prevent stones. However, because people are sort of getting this message, and because unfortunately kidney stones are not really a priority in medical education for any healthcare professional, for that matter, no matter what kind of doctor or dietitian. So unless someone has kind of gone out of their way to really learn about kidney stone prevention, unfortunately, there's just a lot of misinformation floating around. Of course, the internet, we all know that health information online is generally not the best. However, even from your own doctor, there's sometimes things that are either harmful or just not helpful. And so a lot of times people are making many mistakes when it comes to kidney stone prevention. And I truly feel that the most common mistake that I see people make again and again and again, and I've seen, I've interacted with literally thousands of people at this point who have kidney stones, is that people are making things way too hard on themselves. People are trying to be way, way, way too strict with their kidney stone prevention efforts. Truly, if you feel like you can't eat anything except like white rice and chicken, maybe, you're doing something wrong. If you feel like you have to Google every single thing that you put in your mouth, if you feel so restricted that you can't enjoy your favorite foods, that you can't go out to eat, that you feel like you can't live your life, you are doing something wrong. And I promise there is a better way to go about this whole kidney stone thing that actually is probably going to be a whole lot more effective at preventing your kidney stones in the first place. I find that people are just trying to keep all of the things. First of all, they're focusing on all of the things, and most of the time, actually all of the time, people don't need to be focusing on all of the things. People don't need to be thinking about salt and protein and sugar and oxalate and calcium and water, whatever it is, right? This is why it's so, so critical that we really dive into your kidney stones, your lab results, to understand exactly what's forming your kidney stones, so we know exactly what we can do to prevent stones for you, because you are making it way too hard on yourself trying to do all of those things at once, right? There's a lot of different aspects of nutrition that can potentially impact kidney stones, but they're not all important for everyone. We need to know what's going on with your stones so we know what we can do to prevent your stones. And I find that when people try to do all of these things at once, unsurprisingly, they feel like there's nothing left to eat. You feel miserable and hungry. You're trying to keep these things as low as possible, which is another mistake people make. They say, salt, for example, is bad, air quotes here, for kidney stones, so I can't eat any salt. And that is definitely not the deal, right? Like the goal is almost never in nutrition zero, unless we're talking about allergies or celiac disease or something like that. In general, the goal is not zero. The goal is to avoid too much of, right? And so if you see on a food label something has 100 milligrams of sodium, that's okay, right? Like that's just a fact, and you just need to know that as you incorporate that food into your whole dietary pattern, because after all, we know that nutrition for kidney stones or anything is about entire dietary patterns and not just completely, black and white following these lists of foods that are quote good and bad. Like it's all about entire dietary patterns and incorporating things in that pattern in a healthful way that is personalized to your urine test, right? And so the goal is not zero protein. The goal is not zero animal protein. The goal is not zero sugar. The goal is not zero sodium. That really sets you up for failure and honestly, nutrition deficiencies, because you need some sodium. You need protein, obviously. Not necessarily animal protein, but you know what I mean, right? The goal is not zero. And I find that people are just focusing on all of the things all at once, and that's completely unnecessary. And also being way too strict for each of those things. So you can see how this is just making it a whole lot harder than it really has to be in reality. And truly, this cannot go on forever. Eventually, you're going to burn out because that is just way too hard, right? And that is one of the major reasons that I struggle when people say, oh, there's this one kidney stone diet, or even one kidney stone diet for calcium oxalate stones or uric acid stones or calcium phosphate stones or whatever it is. That is making it way too hard. You are going to burn out. It's one thing to pass a kidney stone. You are obviously super motivated because you just went through that horrific experience and you are gung-ho and you're going to do everything. And sure, you could do everything for a couple of weeks, if you're lucky, a couple months, but life happens and you're going to burn out when you are focusing on all of these things and trying to be so strict in all of these aspects. That's just not realistic in the long term. And unfortunately, kidney stones nutrition is a long-term game. Once you are a stone former, you kind of are for life, because there is such a high risk of having another kidney stone again. Estimates are up to a 75% chance of having another kidney stone again. Whatever we are doing to prevent stones has to be sustainable. And when people are on these super strict diets focusing on all these things, any dietitian will tell you that is simply not sustainable. Eventually, you're going to burn out, you're going to give up, and that obviously is not going to be helpful for kidney stone prevention, because you're probably just going to go back to doing whatever you were before, and that's not great, right? We need to find something that is sustainable, that's going to work in your life. I also truly think that there is a concern for nutrition deficiencies, especially when we are thinking about protein and oxalate. I feel like those are the two things that people tend to go way overboard with and have the greatest potential for nutrition deficiencies. Protein, for obvious reasons, because we need some protein in our diets. Obviously, we need protein, but the issue is for some people with kidney stones is that when we eat too much animal protein, specifically protein from things like beef, pork, chicken, fish, seafood, that causes some negative changes in our urine, and that is what's causing stones. So the goal isn't zero protein. Again, it's making sure that you're not eating too much of these animal, specifically non-dairy animal protein, because dairy, we know, is generally a very good thing for kidney stone prevention. But it's, you can see how people kind of go overboard and could fall into a protein and other deficiency when we go too strict and we're not doing these things in the context of a healthy, well-balanced diet, And then oxalate, I feel like it's kind of obvious, right? If anyone has tried to follow a strict low oxalate diet, you realize you cannot eat a lot of notoriously very healthy foods, and those foods are good for you. Spoiler alert, fruits and vegetables are actually really, really good for you. And when you are on a strict low oxalate diet and you are so restricted, specifically in the types of vegetables that you are allowed to eat, again, air quotes here, and many fruits are also sort of taken off the table or restricted, or you have to be mindful even about how much melon you're eating. Like, my goodness, guys, of course that's going to result in nutrition deficiencies. Fruits and vegetables obviously provide so many wonderful benefits, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, all sorts of great things. And with many aspects of nutrition, really variety is key. And when you slash the number of fruits and vegetables that you can eat, especially when you consider that most people in the United States are not eating many fruits and vegetables to begin with, I think it puts people at huge risk of having these nutrition deficiencies. I also think another huge concern with these super strict diets that people are trying to do for kidney stones that are focusing on all the things is truly a concern about sort of disordered eating and fear of food. If you are afraid to eat, if you are so strict in your diet, and this is causing the sort of the psychological distress, truly, that puts you at huge risk of disordered eating and this fear of food. And that is a whole nother discussion. I should probably do a podcast about that too. But just wanted to kind of mention that is another concern of mine when people are doing, this common mistake that I mentioned of just being so strict with all aspects of their diet. And ultimately, unfortunately, I find that when you are on the strict diet, you are restricting the amounts and types of foods that you're eating so significantly that you end up, unfortunately, sort of sabotaging your kidney stone prevention efforts because you're not eating things that are actually good for kidney stones. I talk about this a little bit when I talk about, why I think that a low oxalate diet is truly harmful for kidney stones, but I think this applies to sort of this conversation as well. When you are so restricted in, again, these types of foods that you eat, you feel like all you can eat is like green beans and rice and chicken or whatever it is, whatever the list that you found or that your doctor gave you have reduced your food to, you end up not eating things that are good for your kidneys that will actually help prevent kidney stones. I would love to change the narrative about nutrition in general, but specifically kidney stone nutrition, instead of this focusing on the negative, right? I feel like so much of nutrition is, this is bad for me. I have to eat less salt. I have less protein. I have to eat, right? It's just so it's so negative, and it just puts us in this negative space. I would love to help shift that narrative to putting things that are nourishing in your body, right? Does that make sense? I love to help my patients and my students really focus on putting foods that are nourishing into your body. And when you look at the foods that are nourishing for kidney stones, aka the foods that are associated with a lower risk of stones, the foods that we know have all sorts of good things in them that are going to help prevent stones, unfortunately, they are ironically in the exact foods that many people are trying to limit when they are on these super, super restrictive diets. And so instead, truly, a more balanced approach is better. A more personalized approach is better because it's not going to be so hard, which is pretty sweet, right? Like, I want to make this as easy as possible for you and obviously still prevent kidney stones. When we approach this with a little bit more balance, when we approach this with a more personalized plan, and you don't need to focus on everything, obviously you're going to do the things that really matter for you a whole lot better than when you were trying to do everything at once. Like, let's be real, making diet change is really hard. And when you're trying to do all of the stuff that might matter for kidney stones, you're probably not doing much of it well because it's just simply too hard, or you're not going to be able to do much of it well in the long term. And again, kidney stone prevention is a long-term game. And so instead, if we can come up with a targeted, personalized plan that really matters for you, that is where the magic happens. That is ultimately truly going to be more effective at preventing kidney stones than this spinning your wheels and following the super restrictive diet that you probably can't do for a long time anyway, that is probably, cutting out a lot of foods that would actually probably help you with kidney stones. So truly, this more balanced approach is easier, and truly, in my experience, it's going to be more effective at preventing stones than trying to do everything at once. If you haven't already, and if you enjoyed this conversation today, I would highly encourage you to register for my completely free webinar called The 3-Step Method to Prevent Kidney Stones. In it, I talk about the mistake that I talked about today on the podcast, as well as the 2 other most common mistakes that I see people make when it comes to kidney stone prevention. And then I also share my sort of 3-step method to preventing kidney stones. And this is truly the exact same method that I've used to help hundreds of people prevent stones in my course, Kidney Stone Nutrition School. So definitely check that out. I know that I've been putting some promotions about the webinar out in my email list and on the podcast for a while. But if you haven't registered already, please head to kidneystoneclass.com to register for this free webinar. It's going to completely blow your mind, I promise. I'm going to be sharing so much valuable information similar to what I shared today, right? Really kind of pointing out the things that I see people do wrong most of the time and helping you understand a little bit more about what you can and should be doing instead to actually prevent those kidney stones. So again, in order to register for that webinar, head to kidneystoneclass.com, kidneystoneclass.com, and you can sign up for a time that works for you. I'm offering this webinar for a limited time for tons of times to really help people be able to join me live and really be engaged in the webinar, because it really, I really poured my heart and soul into this one, and I really know that it's going to help a lot of people, including you. So again, head to kidneystoneclass.com to register for that webinar. And as always, I hope that I see you again next week on the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. And also, as always, if you have any questions that you would like me to tackle on the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast, please send them to me. You can head to kidneystonepodcast.com to record your question for a chance for it to get answered on the podcast on a future episode. So have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week on the podcast. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For more help with kidney stones, check out my website, www.thekidneydietitian.org. For more personalized help from me, check out my online course, Kidney Stone Nutrition School. VIP enrollment includes help directly from me. I can't wait to see you there and help you prevent kidney stones. Have a great day.